So do you want to learn how to close the gap in a fight? Then this video is for you. Welcome back to Work at Combat, and today we're going to copy or at least borrow the concepts of the tactics of a pressure/infighter. This is the best style of fighting if you want to learn how to close the gap and add relentless pressure against your opponents, especially those who like to stick on the outside. We're not necessarily going to borrow the exact moves of fighters like Joe Frazier, iconic boxing legend, or UFC's Merab, you know Merab. They're completely different fighters, different sports, but we can still apply certain tactics that they use, and we're going to cover that today. And we're going to cover 3 concepts that you can add into your training if you want to be a better pressure/infighter. So let's get on with it. So far I've covered the counterpuncher and the outboxing styles. If you stick to the end of the video, I'll show you the links for those 2. What these videos have in common, including this one with the pressure fighter, is you can practice these drills without a partner. So the first thing you want to be able to do as a pressure/infighter is you want to be able to get the proper footwork that gets you in. So entry is important. So I'm going to take that first half step, and then I'm going to take another step, but on an angle. I'm emulating cutting my opponent off. So it's almost like a double step. So I step in, but only with my lead foot, and then I step out, in this case to my left. Then you practice the other side. I will step in, and then I will step out using my rear foot as if I'm going to cut them off this way. You want to practice both sides because your opponent isn't just going to move one direction either. And if you're fighting an outboxer who likes to circle out, this is a good way of cutting them off. Another thing you may want to practice is using the L step. An L step is a great way of cutting off your opponent when they're able to take wider angles or circle out wide. It's basically the way a knight moves in a chess game. Okay, it's not really like that. What you really are doing with an L step is if you want to cut off your opponent, imagine they're moving around you, they're trying to circle out. What you do is you take a step back with your lead foot. So it's the opposite. I'll take a step back with my lead foot, and then I shift here, cutting them off here. So it's like as if I'm going to step backwards, but then I use this to push my foot back out, and then I shift here. I created an L direction with my movement, and I cut off more distance against my opponent. So you want to be able to do an L step to really cover distance if you want to cut off somebody like an outboxer. So if you have a line on the floor, you can imagine here. So I'll put my foot over the line and I will step back behind the line, but then I take a step across with my rear foot and then replace it here, respecting the initial position I had before. Again, I created that L position and I was able to cut off my opponent that way. So the next thing we're going to drill is use our strikes to enter. And we're going to use the jab touch drill. So I want to use my jab not just as a measuring tool, but as a distraction. So I throw a first jab, that can be used to measure, but I'm going to throw a second jab, but it's used to disguise my footwork. So it will look like this: jab, and I'm going to touch, and then I step in. So we'll do it in slow. Jab, then the second one is just there. I don't even have to land either jabs. But what I want to do is use the second one to hide or distract that I'm stepping in against my opponent. Key point, try to throw your jab high. Force them to look higher or react higher. Makes it a lot easier to set up that step in. So again, it's the jab touch drill. Jab, touch. Now we say touch because you can make it a game. You can literally try to touch the second one, but use that touch to get yourself closer to the bag. All you need is a bag. Jab, touch, step. And if you're in MMA, it works well to hide your intention to shoot for a takedown. You can do the jab, jab touch, and shoot in. It's a great way of setting up high, forcing their attention high, and then when their attention's high, it hides your motive to get in close. Merab does it very well. And lastly, now that you know how to close the gap, you want to be able to work on that inside. You want to be able to throw those strikes. Now at this range, so we'll pretend that we already applied all those things, the entry and everything. I'm here where I use my jab touch drill to get in close. I want to be able to stick to my opponent. Now, when I'm here, I want to be well protected, and I'm going to be working these close range strikes. So if I'm working the body, I'm throwing here. I want to be able to practice throwing short power punches from this range. So you're going to work your hooks and your uppercuts and even some of your sneaky overhands. But a little tip that I want to teach you is when you're throwing the overhands, throw it almost like you're corkscrewing your punches. So I'm not going to throw wild ones. I'm going to throw it from here, and I'll throw them from outside their field of vision if I can. So they'll come up from this angle, and I work the body shots. So you want to work your weight transfer with each punch, staying close. And you want to also be able to step off on an angle a little bit. I'm going to shift a little to the outside while protecting myself here when I throw each strike. So you want to practice your infighting from this position, but try to stay as close to the bag as much as possible. So work your inside strikes, short power, short angles. And if you're in MMA, you can literally stick to it because you're allowed to clinch and fight in a clinching position. You can stay close and throw your short range strikes from here, including elbows. So now you can put it all together. When you're shadow fighting or working on the bag, you can work that entry, work that footwork where you're trying to cut off your opponent, and then you set them up with the jab touch and get in close. And from there you work your combos, but up close. So you can put all three together when you're shadow fighting or working on the bag. So let's recap those three concepts. First, entry, work on getting in, and then 2, use your strikes to hide your entry, and then 3, work those inside strikes, the dirty boxing, or those short power punches like hooks, uppercuts, and overhands. And if you're in MMA, you can throw in those elbows. So I hope you enjoyed this video on how to become a better pressure/infighter using these 3 simple drills. And if you'd like me to cover a certain style or like me to teach you how to deal with certain styles, please leave it in the comments. And if you can teach me how to say Merab's last name properly, leave that in the comments as well. And as a reminder, if you want to check out the video on how to become a better outboxer, you can check this link here, or how to become a better counterpuncher, you can check that link over there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.